Okay, we're back. We're back and we've got company.
We've got a special guest in Jared from Fourth God Tabletop. How you going?
Fantastic. How about yourself?
Good, amazing. And it's really cool to have you guys in. You've been working with us for the last year and a half, I think.
Yeah, just over a year, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been amazing to see your group grow. Like, I think the first time you guys came in just on a Monday and had a couple of games, and you've grown. Now you're on 4 days a week, and yeah, so you're doing really well. Can you just tell us a bit about what you do?
Yeah, so I'm one of the co-founders of Fourth Guard Tabletop, and what we do is we bring players and dungeon masters together to play a tabletop game called Dungeons and Dragons. And we've been building our community for about a year and 4 months, I think. Yeah, we put people together and help train up people to be dungeon masters from the ground up, and help teach new people who don't understand the game to actually how to play as well. And when we provide a safe space where everybody can have a fantastic game and not have to, not really have to worry about toxic behavior or a bad culture, which sometimes can happen when you play games in a more insulated area. Because me and Josh also provide oversight as well for the players and the DMs. So everybody's got a bit of a support network and some oversight just to make sure that everything that's being done is for the betterment of the community.
Awesome. And you guys, the benefits to mental health is something that, like, we're very proud to be associated with you guys. Tell us how that works.
The mental health aspect of being part of a community.
Of being part of the D&D and how you guys kind of role play and stuff like that.
Yeah. So some of the mental health aspects is that part of Dungeons and Dragons is the role-playing aspect. So you are assuming the role of a character. And there's a bit of a saying that whenever somebody comes up with a character, they put a little bit of themselves into that character, and they get to use that character to interact in an imaginative space. And part of that can be, they might actually be externalizing something that has been a little bit suppressed, I guess you might say.
Just finding a way to channel it, probably.
Yeah, there is that. Then there's also the aspect of being part of a community where the focus is on serving people. So me and Josh definitely serve the community. It's all for our community members that we do this, and being able to sort of put the outside world on hold and just come down and be amongst people that all want the same thing, just to have a nice relaxed time and have some laughs and actually be a part of something. That definitely helps with things like depression and anxiety, because you get to be around people having laughs, actually interacting, engaging, and belonging as well. This community is for everybody, and that's one of the biggest aspects of it.
It all sounds a lot of fun. Like, we're here usually until 6, and you guys start kind of 6, but you guys are normally here from 5:30, and all we're here is people just laughing and just being really relaxed with each other. And I think that's just an amazing kind of setup that you have there.
Yeah, we there are some things that we do take very seriously. That's part of the community oversight, but yeah, we like everybody to be in a relaxed environment where they can actually, where they have the opportunity to make friends as well. And part of that is sharing humor, sharing funny stories, sharing what's happened the week before, and also not having too much of a serious approach to some of the gaming styles that do get played. Some gaming styles might be something more like pub humor, where it's a little bit more laid back and relaxed and casual. And some people prefer something a little bit more serious, where they get to engage their brain at a capacity where they don't normally get the opportunity to be able to do that. And that's their fun as well. That's their, how would you put it? That's their calling, I guess, to fully engage their brain to a challenge that they can't otherwise find at an adequate level. And that's what they need to feel a little bit better. It's kind of like exercising in a sense.
Yeah.
Where some people enjoy like a nice moderate level of activity during the exercise. Some people need the environment to not be scared of their shadow and have their shadow accepted, and to get out that frustration and that aggression and that focus, and that's where they get their release, their relief that really helps benefit their mental health.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, isn't it? Have you?
No, like I really want a 101.
Yep.
So, I haven't really played. I've never played. I know about it, and it's been around like since I was a kid, basically. But how about giving us a 101 so we know what we're talking about, how it's played, how many players, the structure of it. So someone that doesn't know it might get interested and involved with it.
Yep. So D&D is it can be the vehicle for a lot of different things. At its core, it is a collaborative, imaginative storytelling game that is normally played around a table. I've seen some people play it in a pool with drinks and a floatable in the center, and that was absolutely fantastic to see.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's pretty relaxed.
I've got to try that. Yeah. They're the dungeon master was on a floaty, and everybody else was just floating around. That was.
We play backgammon in Greece in the pool or in the sea.
Oh, okay.
We do that. We put on a floaty and we just play backgammon. And that we're crazy. We're Greeks. But,
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. No, so it's usually played around a table. Because sometimes people have miniatures and maps on the table, and that's where you see the props come in. And a really layman's way of explaining it is that the dungeon master has a movie in mind, and he will paint the start of the movie for you. And then the players will come up with their character to be the stars in that movie. And then whatever the stars decide to do, the DM will tell the people what is now happening. And then the stars of the movie have to interact with it according to their character.
Whoa.
So that's that's a really good layman's way of explaining it, to kind of figure out what you actually do in the game.
It needs imagination as well, eh?
Absolutely.
It needs that, that color to bring into. Yeah.
Got to think and I guess think on your feet as well, because things will change, and then you've got to go, okay, maybe I plan to do this, but then I've got to change my.
It's like what we do when we're acting or something like that. Like
there's a lot
we were thrown on stage and okay, this is who you are. Play. Okay.
I don't know my lines though.
I will just make it up.
Yeah, no, that's exactly. And improv is a massive part of it as well, and it's an awesome skill to develop, especially in a social setting as well. Because sometimes you'll be in a situation where you didn't really expect, and then you got to improv a response that is I don't want to say the word socially acceptable, but some people have different kinds of imagination, so you got to
a different perspective as well,
Yeah, that's exactly
they see it
it.
differently, yeah.
Yeah,
POV, point of view.
Yeah, some people have somewhere in the box thinking, and then you get some people that just have wild shots from the craziest direction, and you would never come up with that in a million years, which is fantastic to see. And they just do it on their feet. It's like, how did you even conceptualize that? Yeah. And it's fantastic.
And that
to
would
see
throw
that
the game completely, I suppose, wouldn't it? If they
it does
coming from a completely different.
It completely does. Like sometimes one of the players has put me in a position where I've gone, I need 5 minutes, guys. I'm going to make some coffee. Because they can say the simplest things, but it will change up the movie so much. It will change up the game so much.
Is that one of the thrills, I suppose, of doing what you're doing, that no two games will be exactly the same, and there's an unpredictability of that?
Absolutely, yeah. So one of my players that he plays a druid, so is very familiar with animals, and he can turn into animals. He has a brilliant imagination and also a science-based approach, and he will scientifically describe how he's making something like gunpowder out of animal droppings.
Oh wow!
And he'll explain that to me like, no, this is actually how you do it. This is the process. I would like to do this. And as the dungeon master, I have to go, can I allow this? What is he planning? What is he going to do with it? Oh my God. you know what, I'm just going to let this life now and deal with it afterwards.
Yeah.
And that's, you kind of got to make those calls on your feet. And so there's a lot of social interaction, a lot of negotiating, I guess you could say. Because once you open up the door to gunpowder and you're running something like a medieval setting, you kind of...
You've got to stay in tune with history.
Yeah. Or just kill off all of the animals.
Who are you, Merlin?
Yeah. Yeah, so that definitely is one of the thrills. Everybody has such a interesting imagination and ways of executing that, which is always really interesting to see. It's no game is ever the same. Never.
Can I make a silly question?
There's no such
no
thing
silly
as
question.
There's no silly question, but what I'm hearing, usually games have a winner and a loser, but here I'm hearing of something that they're all winners. Because everyone is winning the experience, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a winner or a loser in D&D.
The only way to lose is to kind of have a really bad social experience. That's the only way to lose. I mean, even if your character dies, it can die in a blaze of glory, and sometimes that is the best thing. Like one of our DMs, they had a player whose character died, you know, it was in spectacular fashion. There was no way he was going to get out of the situation he put himself into. It was a sacrificial play, so, you know, like, just well done to them, because they were playing their character. That's what they would have done. And they got the person's character sheet and they cremated it. You know, your character died, but they made such good fun out of it, which is fantastic to see. But yeah, if everybody's having fun, everybody is winning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting. That it
Yeah,
is a win
no-
all around, you know.
And I suppose it's not really like the end game, like with something like Monopoly, right? The one that's got the most money, they're the winners, and
And the
everyone else is
assets.
throwing the board around and going like. But with something like D&D, it's about the actual game. It's not about who wins. It's about taking part in that social engagement, social interaction. That's why I guess you're saying that there's no winners, there's no losers.
No, there's no losers. Yeah,
because it's about
the people.
yeah,
that
First and foremost.
inclusiveness that it brings, that, you know, togetherness, and, you know, let's go for it and having fun. I think it's a winner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I definitely agree with that. And part of the way they said inclusive, that is one of the best parts about it, because our community is inclusive. D&D is for absolutely everybody, even people that don't even identify as people. It's still for them as well. And one of the best parts about D&D is that you get to, how would I put this? You get to play something that can be an extension of yourself, and you get to actually let that come to the surface and let it interact with other people. And there aren't a lot of spaces where you can do that in a open and friendly and accepting environment. And that's one of the best parts about what we do, is that it is for everybody.
Yeah, I will take those last words, that open, friendly, and accepting. That is a 3-way go for me, because we were talking with Tris before, and he was talking about how you want to target youth now, and how you can support the youth in that. Can you elaborate on that and tell us about it?
Yeah, so me and Josh, we're pretty comfortable with what we're doing with adults, and we've got a really solid foundation of what we're doing with adults. And now we're making plans towards having a youth group as well. And whenever you involve children in something, it does get a little bit more difficult. But we sat down and had a conversation about the what ifs. What if we had a youth group? What if we taught children how to be dungeon masters? What if we scaled everything that we've learned through life and as a DM and gave that to children for them to use as skills as well? What if somebody comes to us when we're 13 and they learn how to become a DM, and by the time they hit 18, they have our entire skill set, all of our negotiating skills, our community building skills, communication, conflict resolution, leadership, organization, improving, thinking on the fly. What if they had all of those skills? And what if we could come up with a blueprint here and then scale that to everywhere else in a whole bunch of other different schools. What if we could do that? And keeping that in mind, there's no way that we can't do that, because that's what we want to do. We want to create a community that has impact. And we feel like that with children, the impact scales so significantly that to not do it would be insane.
Mm. And I think some of the skills that you're passing on, like the leadership skills, if you train them to be DMs, the
conflict
self-esteem, the conflict resolution. There's so many skills that you're teaching that they can use in their school life, in their home life, in everyday life. But you're not sitting down with a PowerPoint and saying, this is how you grow self-esteem and this is how you do this. You're teaching them in a way that's fun, that's basically playing games, and the kind of people you're attracting are probably going to be the kind of kids that are going to be sitting at home on their computers playing games.
Yeah.
And you
if
can
we
see the
can
parents.
if we can get them off those games, that's like what we want
Yeah,
as parents.
This is halfway between what the kids want and what the parents want, because the kids want to play games. They're just stuck on their computers. This is a way of them still playing games, which are fun and engaging, but with people around them, and the parents are going to love that because they're off their computers. So
Yeah.
I think it's such an amazing,
Another
an awesome,
win-win.
Yeah, another win-win.
There's so many things that we could talk about with the swap between playing a game in front of a screen and playing a game with people that it would probably take up hours. Just to give one brief example, the dopamine effects of playing video games compared to the dopamine that you get from playing D&D. Very, very different. Behavioral psychologists will be employed by people that develop games and make games for things like the Xbox, PlayStation, PC, all of those platforms. And they will try and come up with a method of how they can keep the player engaged for as long as they can.
Well, that's where they put in the communication where they can speak to each other as well now. They're partly trying to do that interaction, to have that.
Yeah, they're using dopamine as a way to develop a sort of addiction.
Yeah.
And children over time become very dependent on that. Dependent, I think, is a good word, because it's very common for parents to take gaming away from their kids as a result of bad behavior. And the reaction that you get from the kid is very, very similar to withdrawal. And you got to be thinking, is video gaming even healthy for my kid?
No, I agree with you. It's not.
And also I think that when you meet a friend face to face, your body creates that reaction, that chemical that makes you feel good. But when you're talking to someone online, even though consciously you're talking, you'll know that you're catching up with a friend, your brain isn't making that same chemical reaction. It face to face is that connection. It is really good for our brains, but even if you're talking to friends online, it's still not actually going to have that benefit.
And are you talking to friends online? There are so
That's
many people on there
whole
that
another avenue,
it's
isn't
another
it?
3 or 4 hours to talk about.
Yeah.
But the safety comes first for us parents as well. And another question for you, Jared, is that when you have these youth groups, will there only be youth in that session? Will you have older people as well, like grown-ups, adults with them? And if so, will you have checks involved as well? Because everything's got to be stated here.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for the question, because safety is something I definitely like talking about. So when it comes to mixed ages, I don't think it would be a wise idea to start with that. What I would take the most preference is, I don't know any children that are DMs. So unfortunately, that will have to fall to an adult DM to actually run the session until we can train up young people to become DMs themselves. So we would have an adult dungeon master, and they would be responsible for the safety of the group with parental supervision. That would be my preference. And that way it gives, how would I put it? It gives more oversight. Something with children is that they aren't able to consent. So if you want to introduce a theme like, let's say Possession, for example. Possession can be a fear for a lot of people. If you want to introduce that, you need to have consent before you do introduce that theme. Because what if somebody has trauma around that? What if a child has had really bad experiences with possession? That you need to be able to negotiate that with the parent and the child and everybody at the table as well, because they will be experiencing it as well. So you need to have a parent there to actually give that consent for the child as well. And that's a big, massive part of mental safety. Because whenever you're playing D&D, you are listening in, and if you are listening, you can become vulnerable to certain kinds of material. And so that's something that we definitely train our DMs to deal with as well, is not venturing into topics that have a adverse mental reaction. So something like arachnophobia. If people are arachnophobic, then you can't have spiders in your game. Something like clowns, for example. Running a D&D game where you're at a carnival, it's probably a no-go. Well, it's definitely a no-go. So that's a big part of safety as well. So preferably I would much rather have parents supervising what's going on at the table while the adult DM teaches the game to the kids. And eventually we would like to swap out the adult DM with a child DM. And either Josh or myself or another DM that we really trust that's really good with kids will supervise the game as well and provide support.
I guess that's another thing where you can scale it. If you get some young people to train them to be DMs, then you can have multiple games here and you can train more DMs and it can just grow from there, isn't it?
Yeah, that is exactly what we're hoping for, because we definitely want to scale this. And Josh and myself really have to figure out the best way to provide something that is really safe with kids in mind. Because whenever you get kids involved, there's so many more variables that can come into play. We want to make sure that everybody is having fun in an environment very much like what we've created for adults. But obviously with the vulnerabilities of being an adolescent, being a teenager, being a child brought into the equation as well.
Yeah. And like with the adult games that you do, you can carry the same story on multiple weeks. So you're obviously meeting once a week, but your game doesn't just finish on that week, does it? So it carries on over multiple weeks. Would that be the same for the kids, or would you have like a one-off each week?
It would depend on the situation, but campaigns, I think, are the better way to go once you've got a established group.
Yeah.
And once you know that the group gels really well together, that's when it would be good to have a campaign. But something our DMs do, which is fantastic to see, is that they'll start with a one-shot, then they will grab a whole bunch of ideas from what they've done in previous games, and then they'll turn it into a campaign as well. So that's something that our DMs are exceptionally good at doing, because they're all creative, they all think on their feet. They can deepen ideas, they can come up with so many things on the fly that it takes a while to think about it. And yeah, campaigning is definitely the way to go for group stability, for building camaraderie with your peers. Yeah, it's definitely the right way to go. Otherwise, it's too wishy-washy and children don't really get invested in it if they're just swapping out all the time.
Yeah. And that's, I guess, I think when we were talking before about the retention, because I guess depending on the age of the child, whether a child or an adolescent is going to retain the information for the following week and then carry on, or whether like a one-off would be better, and how that's going to work with them. Yeah. I guess another thing that we wanted to talk about is you're looking at running this in the school term?
Yeah. So Saturday the 29th is when we're going to have our first game. After that, we're going to try and get it running for weekdays, so after school at 4 p.m.
Yep.
on a Wednesday, and that's going to start in the week children go back to school. And so we're really hoping that's going to be a good date for everybody. That way children can go to school, take care of their responsibilities there, and then come back here for a game of D&D.
And where are you going to do this?
At Inspire.
At Inspire?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just had to say it because we had
We hadn't actually said that's
we
right.
didn't say it. You know, it's an obvious question, but you know, we had to state
Yeah,
it.
it just has to be stated for the sound
Yeah.
clip.
Yeah,
for
and
that sound bite.
if you're not familiar, we're in between the Commonwealth Bank and NDIS near the Rockingham Shopping Centre there. So the 29th is an opportunity to come and have a look at what you guys do, maybe chat to you, take part in a game or two, and get a feel for it. And then obviously you guys will start on the following week.
Yeah, so Saturday the 29th, it'll start at 1 p.m.
Yep.
So you can come down, chat to some of the people that help run the sessions. You can see a game in action. You can see some of the structure of how games are run. So something like getting consent from everybody to make sure that the themes that is being run is acceptable and everybody's happy and comfortable with it.
Mm-hmm.
Explaining game mechanics, explaining the structure of it. Some of the terminology like D4s, D10s, character sheet, actions, like some of the jargon that we use as well. That's going to be a really good opportunity to find out what we have on offer and what we're about.
Yep. That sounds really exciting. I'm really looking forward to the 29th.
Yeah.
It's 2 weeks on Saturday, isn't it?
I'd have to do quick math, but I believe it is. Yep.
It's the 15th this Saturday because we're doing the Bunnings.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
threw that in there. So yeah, pretty sure it's 2 weeks this Saturday. So
Yeah.
it's the last Saturday before the kids go back to school.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, if you could have an idea of your ideal player, what would that look like? What are the kind of kids that you're looking to attract?
That is an interesting question. And I don't have an answer for it. Part of the best part about D&D and this community is that people from all different walks of life play it.
Mm.
And everybody is different. And something that I've noticed is that there isn't any ideal player. There are certain traits that some people have which do make it very easy to run games.
Yeah.
And have them at the table. But the ideal
What
player...
does that look like then? What kind of traits would be best to be a DM?
Be open.
In being a DM or being a player?
Be
being
a
a
player.
Being a player. Consistency is a big thing. Communicating if you're having trouble playing beforehand. That's a big thing as well. When you're trying to organize something and things happen at the last minute, and it's sometimes you just have a bad week. It's just not a good day for you to be around other people.
Mm.
I get it. All of us have those kinds of days. If you can communicate that beforehand, fantastic, because then you can make plans several days beforehand and adjust for it, and you can actually you'll notice that they're in a bad spot, so maybe they need somebody to talk to as well. Like that kind of communication, that's really good.
Yeah.
And that also helps build camaraderie because you're finding out that people that aren't your family actually really do care about you. So communication is a big one, honesty, and people that can leave their ego at the door where it belongs. There's no dominance hierarchy here. There's not really anybody in charge. There's just differing levels of responsibility. And there's nobody looks down on each other. So there's no need for ego here.
Mm.
You know what fascinates me is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you have to have a good memory as well. Like, if you're going to be playing for weeks, how do you remember what's going on? I would struggle, to tell you the truth.
I struggle all the time, and that's why I kind of grab the shovel.
Is it recorded at all? Do you take down notes? How do you do it, guys?
Note recording is normally the preferred method.
Yep.
Recording audio or video, you need consent for that, so we don't really...
Or video or whatever, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Canonologically, I'm not sure if I'm butchering that. If everybody at the table forgets about it, it no longer exists. There we go. Yeah, so if people forget about it, it no longer
Exists.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That word is going to drive me nuts. I'm going to be thinking about that at 9 p.m. tonight, trying to go to sleep.
It'll still exist by then.
How dare you?
No, the word will
Was
still
that,
exist.
Was that on purpose?
No.
Well done though. I'll pay that. Yeah. Some people do have really good memories and they can remember something several months ago off the top of their head. I'm not that kind of animal. I just improv a lot of things from a structure. So my natural tendency is to improv complex things and then just deliver them terribly. So what I'll normally do as the DM is I'll say something and then if the players forget about it, it doesn't exist. I got it.
You got it.
I got it.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And that really helps out if... Lost my train of thought. Hang on, I get it back in a minute. I just got to shove more coal into the brain engine. When it comes to starting off the session, something I will do is I'll go around the table and the players will tell me what happened last session. So that way I'm just grabbing a shovel and just shoveling that responsibility to remember stuff onto them.
Okay,
So that's something that you
cool.
can do as a DM.
That's a
Nice.
really cool trick.
And something else I wanted to ask as well, like we know it's something that you get together and play. Do you also do that through like Zoom or, video onlining or something like that, streaming or?
So there are some groups on Facebook that do run that like a group finder for online sessions. We don't do that here because the power is in the proximity. And when you take it to an online space, you lose that power because it just becomes another video game. And we really don't want to do that. We don't want to lose the power of proximity.
That's great.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that really is powerful about what you do, that it's not an online thing, it's face-to-face. You have that continuation of people. And so if people stop coming, you guys reach out and check in. And it's kind of similar to Menschel, I guess, in that respect, that it's a place where people can go and feel safe. And if they do drop out for a bit, you've got their back.
Yeah, like one of our... sometimes when I share a story, I will grab the information and just scatter as many bits of it. So I'm going to use the word person for this one. So male or female would give away a gender, and I like to share stories where there's little that can be traced back to them as possible. One of our people has had a family member pass away, and they still came for a couple of weeks, and then they just had to step away to process their grief. And the door is wide open for them to come back in. So it's really important for people to be explicitly told that we've got their back. And if they need to reach out and talk to somebody, we're there for them.
Yeah, it's good to know that you have like a harbor as well where you can, feel comfortable and open. And what you said before is that we're talking about people and we know that I've seen mostly men saying, but are there women that are involved with D&D?
Absolutely. A lot of the creators on social media, I'd guess around just a 50-50 split of the content creators that are on social media are, in fact, women, or at least feminine presenting women. I'm not sure if that's the right term for it, but they're female presenting. Yep. And there was a report done by either Polygon, Eurogamer, or some other online gaming publication that shared that 40% of the D&D players are actually female. So there's a lot more women that play D&D.
I didn't expect that answer, to tell you the truth.
I
pretty high.
honestly didn't expect it as well. I think sometimes what happens is...
It's great that it is.
Yeah,
it's
I think the marketing might be a little bit different. I think women are more inclined to play D&D with people that they already know.
Yep.
And so they play D&D from peer to peer. And Fourth Guard was built off of open marketing, which I think might have more of a male presenting saturation. So of course you're going to get more male players.
Yeah. No worries. That's really awesome. So 29th of January, 1 o'clock here at Inspire Radio or IPL Radio.
That'd be correct.
And that's, you can take part or you don't have to.
Mm.
It's kind of an easy way in. People can either engage and play the game, or they can just kind of watch.
Yes, that is it.
It's like a workshop in the making as well.
Yeah, it's a it's more of a learn to session, or a observe session. Something that I think is worth stating is that I won't be running the session for adults because we have days throughout the week to do that.
Yep.
So if you're an adult wanting to participate, I will have to say no, because it will be, the focus is on developing the youth group.
All right, so it's 13 to 18, 13 to 17, somewhere there.
I think once you hit 18, the dynamic changes completely because of legality.
So it's 13, 17.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you've got the Thursdays afterwards. It's 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock. No, not 1 o'clock.
Wednesdays.
4 o'clock. 4 o'clock. That's it.
Yeah.
Does anyone need to get in touch with you before coming on Saturday, or can they just turn up?
They can just turn up. I would take preference to being contacted on Messenger or Facebook. That way I've got a rough idea of numbers.
Yeah.
And I can kind of gauge how many people should be around for them to talk to and engage with and have a conversation with.
So we'll post the link when we put this up on YouTube. But just for the people listening at the moment, what's the name of the Facebook group, or do you have an email address they can write to as well?
So that would be Fourth Guard Tabletop. Trying to remember my email address for it. It'll take about 2 minutes for me to find out. It's not coming off the top of my head. But Fourth Guard Tabletop, if you search that into Facebook,
yep,
you will find the group. There's a red and black samurai logo.
Yep. Okay, so they just send a message to you saying, I'd like my son or daughter to come on the Saturday. That's all they need to say.
And we want them along as well, right?
Yeah,
we want the parents
to
along
come.
to see what's going on.
Absolutely.
So they can get their workshop done too, so that they know what their kid's going through.
Yeah, they might even
potentially
want to play some D&D themselves.
Exactly, yeah.
I will, once the foundation is put down, like once the youth group really does start taking off, I know we're going to get we're going to get parents that haven't played D&D that are bringing their kids along to play D&D. So they won't have any idea how it's played or the benefits of it or the skills that they're going to be learning. So having to be able to have a conversation with the parents on what's involved in being a player, but what they can also get out of their child becoming a DM and all the skills that they are going to develop from that, that is exceptionally transferable to not only home life but professional and social life as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's definitely going to be something where you should have a conversation with a DM, because they will tell you that the skill ceiling for this is so exceptionally high. I've got a lot of different professions, like I'm a butcher, I'm a personal trainer, I make resin art. All of those skills are quite easy in comparison to being a DM, just because of how many different skills you develop and use all at the same time. And that's definitely something that a parent should have a conversation with someone from our community about, is what skills are involved in being a DM. Because if you are a really good DM when you're a teenager, it opens up so many different doors, as well as you will have your own sort of friendship circle inside of the community as well. It's definitely a conversation to have.
It's socializing as well. And
Yeah.
there might even be parents that played it when they were young and just grew out of it or weren't interested anymore or whatever, and they bring them back
Yeah.
back to it,
Sure, there'd be lots of people in that boat.
Yeah. And they'll probably see the distinctions between playing with a small group of friends at a house to community D&D. There's a lot more togetherness with it, a lot more safety as well.
That's really awesome. Is there anything else that you need to kind of cover before we head into some music?
Not a great deal comes to mind. I could maybe talk about the structure of, not the structure of it. No, I'll talk about that more in maybe a Learn to DM session.
Yeah.
So we'll probably get a Learn to DM session going for kids as well. and that'll be sometime in hopefully February.
All right, we
That'll
can
be a little bit more about
possibly
that then.
get you back on as well, and
Yeah.
That might be an idea. Yeah.
yeah, talk about extra things about D&D and that, and the DMs and.
I think we probably, if we really delve into it, we could probably have an interview that went for like an hour and a half talking about D&D and the
Yeah.
benefits to
Mm.
you guys, but also the benefits to young people. I think that's a conversation that will go for a long time, really.
Yeah, but I really appreciated you coming in today and just getting that out to the people and the public and everyone, listening and learning about it. Like I know I learned about a lot about it today, so I'm really glad.
I'm happy to come here and share what I've got with you guys.
We're looking forward to the 29th to get some young people in and to get them engaged in something that's going to be helpful for their growth.
Yeah, absolutely. In a lot of different ways that people wouldn't expect as well.
Yeah, amazing stuff. We're going to head to some...
Yeah, we're gonna
Some
have some music. Thank Jared again for coming along and spending some time with us and building new personalities, building new games, new stories. And the next song I've got is "We Built This City." So I love how.